GoldLink dropping. This is what, his sophomore major label album.
Yeah, so 2017, 2 years ago, he dropped At What Cost, and I had viewed that as his debut album, but I was actually reading GoldLink in an interview that due to label agreements, that was considered a commercial mixtape, and this new project, Diaspora, is technically his debut album per label stuff. So honestly, confusing, but it sounds like a legitimate reason, and we usually don't get any kind of explanation these days, so I'll take it.
So our guy GoldLink here dropping his debut album, which pretty impressive to be a debut album when you've had some really solid work. You mentioned At What Cost, which I think was garnered quite a bit of attention back in 2017 for being fairly experimental, infusing a lot of different sounds. GoldLink, I think, represented himself well as a rapper on that album. But Diaspora, I mean, I think you and I have been texting about it. We've been pretty blown away by this album. Give me your just general thoughts about this album. What you think stands out or makes it special?
Yeah, well, people kind of been on GoldLink for a while now. It's like XXL Freshman several years ago. At What Cost got a Grammy nom for Crew, which was an amazing track. I had that in my top 10 songs 2017, and really showed that he has a unique sound and also is a strong presence within the rising DMV rap scene. And then have Diaspora come out, and it's like, all right, we have that DMV flow still present, yet now he's incorporating all these other worldly influences, a lot of Afrobeat and dance production, and he's had house production in the past, even going back to his 2015 second mixtape. But to hear it come out in this album just feels so international while still very much being a rap album. It's just really awesome, and definitely one of my favorite albums of the year thus far. I've listened to it several times already. So yeah, I was a big fan. What about you? What did you think stood out?
I mean, you hit on a lot of the things. I think just the broadness of the sound is what impressed me the most. And if you go back and listen to At What Cost, I feel like that album is almost like cut up into sections. Like there's the K Tronada section, and then he like kind of goes like I would say more international at parts where he's like, he's sampling the Speedy Hares or something like that. I forgot what the name of that band was on Her Side Story. But it's almost like he like zooms in on his influences and zooms out pretty quickly on that album. But I feel like on Diaspora, what he does really well is he infuses the different influences he has, whether it's DMC or Afrobeat or dancehall, and he sprinkles it in throughout in a really masterful way that I think makes the album feel a little bit more cohesive than At What Cost, and it just kind of keeps it flowing. Like I feel like I went from the second or third song of this album to almost like the last song without even really like thinking about like, oh, what track are we on? Like I was like, oh, this thing just flows really well together. The middle, I guess I would say, is like the feature part of the section of the album, because you got Pusha, you got Tyler, Jay Prince, all kind of coming in and doing their own thing. Yep. But then it kind of zooms back out to be him kind of finishing it up by himself on like Tiff Freestyle and Swoosh. Just a really, really well-made album. And I know you tweeted about like his influence, his infusion of Afrobeat and dancehall in here. What tracks do you feel like really did that well?
Yeah. I think Zulu Screams, which was I want to say the lead single, which got a lot of love when it came out. But you listen to a song like that, you listen to a song like More or Yard, or of course No Lie, Wizkid, you know, you just hear the broader African influence that's got much more accessible here in the West recently. I think that's really cool because this feels like it's done in a genuine way, and also doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It doesn't sound like GoldLink is jumping on any trends or anything, or just riding anything hot. It really does feel genuine because we've heard bits of it in the past, and I think this kind of style and incorporating it while still making it rap music stands out a lot. Like, cause like the dancehall influence we've talked about before with Drake and other people, and like that comes, but usually that doesn't really translate into actual hip hop. It's more just like, you know, reggae inspired music. It's not
Mhm.
really rap. But I feel like GoldLink is really finding a way to like walk both lines at the same time, which I think just makes good music. It sounds really good. And as you
Mhm.
mentioned with the features, I feel like you say with Tyler and Jay Prince, that
Mhm.
really tactfully done song. I think the push it feature, I like the push it feature, but it doesn't it almost doesn't fit with a lot of the other vibe just because as the song would suggest, it's just about Pusha doing his coke bars, which are great. We like the
Yeah.
coke bars, but it almost feels like a weird like interlude of sorts, just because it doesn't really relate to much on the other album, but it's fine. Yeah, yeah. I think most of the tracks I think really move and like you can really just kind of bounce to these. Like I thought the Khalid feature actually was pretty solid. It's a bit of an
Mhm.
understated feature, given what we've heard from him recently. But like Joke Ting, Maniac into the Khalid song and Zulu Screams,
Yeah.
that like those four songs after the very brief opening track really
Mhm.
starts off really great. And then also having You Say Go Into Yard, Spanish song, one of the most internationally of all these tracks, as well as the WizKid track. Like it's just
Mhm.
two really good sequences in the beginning and end. So love the album.
Yeah, it's a really strong album. Joke Ting, Spanish song are two of the songs that stood out most to me. You already mentioned You Say with Tyler and Jay Prince quite a bit, but that song's absolutely fire. Um, it it's weird because GoldLink, I feel like At What Cost was well regarded, but I feel like he doesn't. Unlike other rappers, I don't see him like jumping onto tracks a lot. I don't see him doing guest features a lot. He
Really,
seems
no.
a bit more like I don't know, like a creative in a sense. Like he's more focused on like what he's making rather than just kind of like playing the game and being part of that like constant grind, so to speak. Do you have any idea or any thought of like where he might go next? Because it seems like he's trying to infuse more and more into his sound.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I think the only time I really referenced any of his music before was he was on the K Tronada album. He was on
Hmm.
Denzel's Taboo last year. Stuff we talked about, stuff we listened to. But other than that, like most of his features are like kind of out of the hip hop space. Like he was on the Diplo EP recently. He's on almost like kind of weird crossover songs because he's proven himself as a guy who can be on bouncy electronic,
Yeah.
non-traditional rap production, right? And I kind of feel like that's the easy path for him to
Hmm.
grow because he's already proven himself as a successful, competent rapper, good rapper.
Hmm.
Um, I think what's interesting, and I'm actually curious if this continues, is as this album cover suggests, you hear throughout the album, Justine Skye, his famous girlfriend, R&B singer, is definitely like his muse on this album. She has kind of
Hmm.
like a lot of background vocals at the end of a few of these tracks throughout, and they've collaborated before, if I remember right. But I wonder if he just continues to kind of do what she does and just maybe really mold into a more I don't know, quieter sound. I don't know. He can go in a lot of directions, so very
Yeah.
exciting.
Give me the Gold Link K Tronada full album. That's
There
all
you
I
go.
want.